My husband left home for his ex-lover, so I decided to take everything he owned and leave him with nothing. I used to believe that if I was sincere, everything would work out. It wasn't until a rainy night in Seattle that I realized, the harder you try to hold on to something, the faster it slips away. That evening, James Carter came home late. When I opened the door, the scent of rain and wind mingled with a strange woman's perfume wafting from his coat, chilling me to the bone. He didn't look at me, just tossed his umbrella on the floor and shuffled inside, shoes askew. I didn't say a word, just poured 2 glasses of red wine as usual, one for him, one for me. I didn't drink first, waiting for him. But he didn't touch his glass either, staring at it before lifting his gaze to me, his eyes distant, almost unreal. Those eyes were once the safest place in the world to me. "Are you drunk?" I asked. He shook his head and let out a dry, hollow laugh. "Not drunk. I'm more sober than ever." He leaned back on the sofa, loosening his tie with one hand and rubbing his forehead with the other. "Tina, if there was a woman who sacrificed more for me than you have, would you let me go?" I thought I'd misheard. The wine in my glass was still a deep, blood-red shimmer, but my heart skipped a beat, turning cold. I didn't answer, and he didn't wait for one. The man I'd called my husband for 4 years, who promised never to leave me alone on a rainy Seattle night, had just asked if I could give him up for someone else. The worst part? He didn't ask if I was hurt or sad. He only asked if I could let him go, as if I were holding on to an object, not a person. I'm no fool. I'm in business, reading contracts more often than I read my husband's face. I know some things can be transferred, but I never thought feelings could be traded like a commodity. I raised my glass, lightly clinking it against his. "Drink," I smiled. "And tomorrow, say it again when you're sober." But I knew he wouldn't take it back. Those who start to stray don't wait for sobriety to betray. That night, he slept in the study. I stayed awake, not out of heartbreak, but because I was replaying every year I'd believed in him. I met him when he was an intern at a startup funded by my adoptive father's company, Pinnacle Group. He was smart, composed, and spoke with sharp wit. I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. I thought I'd chosen the right man. I never calculated that his heart never truly belonged to me. He once said, "When I was at my lowest, you were the only one by my side." I thought it was deep gratitude. But later, I realized that for men like him, gratitude doesn't stop them from chasing their past. He told me about a girl from his college days who saved him from a car accident. She wasn't his official girlfriend, but she lingered in his heart like a faint streak of light. He called her Emily Watson. I didn't think much of it. Everyone has a past. But now I understood, some pasts are used to justify present betrayals. "Go to bed early," I said. Then I opened my laptop to review an unfinished investment plan. Carter Incorporated stood strong today, largely thanks to the capital from Pinnacle Group. He didn't know I was the one who approved those funding rounds. I once thought supporting him was supporting myself. Now I saw it differently. Perhaps it was time to let go of a bad investment. I turned off the light, pulled up the covers, and lay in bed. In the next room, the hum of the air conditioner was steady. He slept soundly, as if nothing had happened, while I lay there, eyes wide open in the dark. I wasn't hurt, just awake. People love without reason, but when they betray, they'll find 100 reasons to justify their guilt. I smiled faintly. Fine. If he wanted someone else, I'd show him what he'd lose without me. I once heard this saying, "The white moonlight in a man's heart isn't light, it's a mirror, reflecting their greed and regret." I think that fits Emily Watson, the woman who returned to Seattle after 5 years and instantly became the name on everyone's lips. From James's colleagues to the PR assistant at Carter Incorporated, they all praised her like some reborn icon post-divorce. MS. Watson is so strong, rising again after betrayal. That's the kind of woman to admire, not the weak type who needs a man to provide. I listened, fingers still typing, a smile on my face. No one knew the weak type they were hinting at was me, the one who poured her fortune into Carter Incorporated. But it didn't matter. I had no need to correct them. Let those who love to imagine live in their drama. When the curtain falls, only I'd know how prepared I was. I met Emily Watson at a launch party for Carter's new project. She wore a white off-shoulder dress, a classic pearl necklace, and subtle makeup that made her look pure, with sparkling eyes, the kind of woman men fall for, especially those who want to cheat but need a reason to feel less despicable. When I entered the venue, she was standing next to James, chatting animatedly with a young investor. I wasn't jealous. I'm Tina Harris, I don't compete for what's already mine. But I saw something. His eyes no longer looked at me the way they did when we ate instant noodles in our cramped Capitol Hill apartment, counting every penny. Instead, he gazed at Emily Watson with a tenderness beyond what he'd shown when he proposed, handing her a glass of red wine. Emily turned to me, smiling like we were old friends. Tina, she stepped forward, grabbing my hand warmly, you're as beautiful as in the pictures James showed me. I gently pulled my hand back, smiling. What an honor. I don't have any photos of you, but seeing you in person is quite impressive. She laughed, covering her mouth, the perfect charming princess. You're so sweet, just like your style, elegant and sharp. You must be the kind of woman men admire but find a bit intimidating. I sipped my wine, my voice soft. That's fine. Those who can handle it stay. Those who feel pressured can leave. I don't hold on. I looked into her eyes, and for the first time, her sparkling gaze faltered, the artificial glow dimming. Maybe she didn't expect me to be as unshakable as James had described. That night, back home, I opened my laptop and emailed Sarah Lynn, my new assistant hired last month. She didn't know her hiring was approved not by me but by my adoptive father, William Harris. He'd said, "This girl's good at auditing. Keep her close. If you're too busy, let someone else oversee her." I didn't think much of it then, but after meeting Emily, I understood why he'd acted early. 3 days later, Sarah sent me a spreadsheet. I scanned the rows of numbers, detailing marketing and strategy expenses transferred from Carter Incorporated to Emily Watson's account, $15,000 a month, 5 times the average market consultant fee in Seattle, without any board approval. I leaned back, chuckling. Not surprised, just amused. I'd thought if they truly loved each other, I'd step aside quietly. But their love needed my money to survive. That's not love, it's just switching investors. I called Sarah. Thanks. Keep tracking, report weekly. Also, look into internal gifts and invalid networking expenses. I want to know everything he's hidden. Yes, Ms. Harris. I hung up, stood, and poured a glass of water. Outside, it was starting to rain, another Seattle night. I opened the window, letting the wind rush in, and looked at the inky sky. I wasn't sad, just clear-headed. If his white moonlight was a knife, he'd chosen to catch it. I'd just watch him bleed and quietly close the door. I'd imagined divorce scenes before, a heated argument, a tearful meltdown, or fleeing with a suitcase in the rain. But no. My husband chose a divorce as formal as a resignation email. That evening, fresh from a business trip in Atlanta, I hadn't even changed my shoes when I saw the papers neatly placed on the dining table. Under the dim yellow light, his signature stood out, precise and emotionless. I opened it and read. The first line, due to irreconcilable differences in personality and life goals. I laughed out loud. Life goals on paper, but I knew it was about a new goal in high heels, paid for with company funds. James emerged from the bedroom, pulling a suitcase, dressed in a crisp white shirt and tie, looking more like an employee leaving a job than a husband leaving his wife. "I don't want to live a lie anymore," he said, looking straight at me, as if expecting praise for his honesty. I nodded, flipped to the last page, and signed. No questions, no pleading, no extra words. He froze for a moment, then pulled his suitcase and left. The sound of its wheels on the tile floor was cold, like the slow drop of a theater curtain on a play with a predictable ending. I watched him go, feeling no loss, just a faint emptiness, like paying off an old debt, the debt of my illusion about marriage. The next morning, I emailed a week's leave request, no reason given. I didn't need others to know my plans, I just needed them out of my way. I delegated operations to Amy Green, my deputy for 3 years. She didn't ask why, just said, "Don't worry, I'll hold the fort. Go fight your battle." I laughed, feeling lighter. That afternoon, I met my lawyer, Michael Lee, at a quiet cafe in Bellevue. Michael, 3 years my senior, was calm and meticulous to a fault. But I needed that precision to counter James Carter, the man who thrived on charm and smoothness. "What's urgent?" Michael asked, cutting to the chase. I slid a folder toward him. "I need you to audit all of Carter's shares, including those held by proxies, and any investments from Pinnacle Group. If there's any legal loophole, I want to know before he sells everything." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Divorced already?" I nodded. He left the papers, I signed. He didn't press further, just nodded. "How do you want to counter? Soft or hard?" I leaned back, looking out the window. A light drizzle began, Seattle's signature, just enough to evoke sadness without soaking clothes. "Hard," I said slowly. "But legal. I don't want him in jail, I just want the ground he stands on to be mine to pull away." 3 days later, a notice from Pinnacle Group hit Carter's accounting department. Pinnacle was withdrawing all investment and terminating media, operations, and tech support effective immediately. No reason, no explanation. That single line was enough to spook dozens of smaller investors into pulling out. Carter Incorporated, once a promising tech startup, became a financial pariah overnight. James called me. I didn't answer. I texted back, "You chose to leave. I'm just helping you go all the way." That night, I opened an old bottle of wine, poured a full glass, and looked at the study where he used to work. I'd cleared out his things, changed the sheets, the curtains. Not to forget, but to stop remembering. What he wanted to discard, I wouldn't keep. But what I'd given, he wouldn't keep either. That email's impact was seismic. Within 48 hours of Pinnacle's withdrawal, Carter went from tech darling to a ticking financial bomb. Stocks plummeted, secondary investors fled, and strategic telecom contracts were paused. Worst of all, the media began whispering. No one needed the full story, just the news that Pinnacle pulled out without explanation was enough to cast doubt. I didn't need to strike directly. The weight of one name's exit was enough to collapse the rest. That evening, as I sipped tea in my home office, the doorbell rang. I wasn't surprised to see James on the camera, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, like he'd been wrung out by a storm. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He stared at me, then shouted, "Are you ruining my career over feelings? Because I love someone else, you're destroying me?" I tilted my head, as if listening to an amusing story. "I'm not petty enough to ruin you over feelings," I said evenly. "I'm just taking back what was mine. As for feelings, keep them. I don't need them back." He was speechless, breathing heavily, voice low. "You can't just erase everything. You were my partner." I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Exactly. Because I was your partner, I get to choose when to walk away. He glared, as if he could devour me, but no words came. I glanced at my watch and said, "Oh, if you have time, check social media tomorrow. I'll help you clear things up." The next morning, I leaked internal documents, anonymously, no trace to Pinnacle or me, detailing 3 years of Carter's funding and assets. They showed 80% of initial capital, office space, tech equipment, and senior staff came from Pinnacle Group. And the one orchestrating it all? Me. The headline was simple: "Who really built Carter?" Social media exploded. From amateur investors to major financial outlets, everyone traced back. Who made Carter, and was James Carter the visionary or just a frontman? I sat in my office, sipping jasmine tea, scrolling through comments like watching a rerun of an old movie. That afternoon, Sarah called. "Tina, he's in the hospital. Emergency for high blood pressure, collapsed during a shareholder meeting." I nodded, asking no more. The deepest wound isn't physical, it's when the world sees the truth you hid. I didn't visit or check on him. I texted Michael, moved to step 2. Freeze all his signed and authorized assets. Michael replied with a thumbs up emoji. That evening, I went home early. In the mirror, I saw a woman without a wedding ring, no longer waiting for someone's love. I saw Tina Harris, a woman who learned some things don't need reclaiming, they just need to collapse. They say you don't realize you're foolish until you're betrayed. But James Carter knew he was being played, he just ignored it, unwilling to believe his moonlight was the betrayer. News of his hospitalization spread through the investment world in an afternoon. Sarah kept me updated. He refused treatment for days, asking for his phone the moment he woke. Emily Watson didn't answer. I smiled. A familiar script: the hero collapses, the heroine vanishes. 2 days later, a report from private investigators in Miami arrived. The team, used by financial tycoons, was discreet and thorough. I flipped to page 3 and laughed aloud. Emily Watson, James's savior, soulmate, irreplaceable goddess, was living in a luxury condo in Miami Beach with Robert Johnson, a real estate mogul 15 years her senior. Public camera footage showed her arm in arm with him, shopping for baby items, her belly visibly 6 months pregnant. I sipped ginger tea, eyes scanning the report. Sarah walked in, placing a new financial statement on my desk, whispering, "Tina, you should see this before he liquidates his remaining shares." I skimmed the paper, spotting a red underlined line. On the 12th, James transferred 3% of my shares to Emily Watson as thanks for strategic consulting. I didn't recall signing any transfer or authorizing him to handle my shares. Yet my name was listed as transferor, hers as recipient. I closed my eyes for 3 seconds, then opened them, smiling faintly. I thought his betrayal was just emotional. Turns out, his business integrity was fake too. I called Michael. File a lawsuit against James Carter for unauthorized share transfers and request a court freeze on Emily Watson's assets. Michael's voice was calm. Got it. Be ready, this'll get loud. I laughed. Loud is good. The more people know the truth, the easier it is to cut off their escape. I hung up as the clock struck 6 p.m. Seattle's early April chill lingered, wind from Puget Sound biting my skin. I gazed at the skyline's twinkling lights. Someone once asked, "How do you stay so calm after such pain?" I smiled and said, "Because I've hurt long enough. Now, it's like drinking cold tea, still drinkable, but tasteless." When James betrayed me once, I called it blindness. When he did it again, it was his nature. I had no interest in teaching or warning him, I just wanted to reclaim the life I'd misplaced. I don't believe in karma, but I believe in consequences. For betrayers, karma doesn't wait for the next life. A legal document, a well-timed meeting, that's enough to strip them bare. That day, I wore a crisp white suit, sharp and simple, and walked into Carter's boardroom as the lead investor and co-owner. All eyes, finance director, HR head, turned to me. Some looked awkward, others nervous. They knew I wasn't there for pleasantries. James was there, pale, eyes shifty. Still recovering from his hospital stint, he dragged himself to the meeting to save face. I stood when the chair opened for shareholder remarks. I have documents to share, I said, placing a thick folder on the table. No one objected. The room felt like a freezer. I opened the folder, speaking calmly, no resentment, no drama, like reading a quarterly report. Over the past 3 years, Mr. James Carter has repeatedly transferred shares without authorization, including under my name, Tina Harris, to a third party without consent. The room stirred. I continued, this violates company bylaws in Section 178 of corporate law. I request this be recorded and a process initiated to remove Mr. James as chairman, with files sent to financial regulators. James shot up. Are you insane? You're destroying me over this? I turned, smiling faintly. Don't think my silence meant ignorance. I stayed quiet because I thought I'd trusted the wrong person. But after being betrayed too many times, I chose to bring it to light, not for revenge, but to free myself from the debt of mercy. He trembled, trying to argue, but the legal director stood. Per the bylaws, the board will convene a vote to remove. Pending investigation, Mr. James is suspended from all duties. A week later, a travel ban was issued. His shares were frozen. Remaining investors quietly withdrew. No one wanted to be tied to a financial scandal. Everything collapsed, just as he'd built it on my borrowed bricks. On a Tuesday afternoon, as I reviewed contracts at home, the doorbell rang. I wasn't surprised to see James's parents outside, carrying a fruit basket, faces flushed like they'd run across town. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. His mother rushed forward, grabbing my hand, crying, Tina, please. Don't sue him. You were once husband and wife. I pulled my hand back, looking at her calmly. Auntie, your son squandered what was mine. He should find his own way to earn it back. Don't ask me. His father stood silent, sighing, looking at me with helpless eyes. I thought I'd soften if they apologized. But in that moment, I saw only fake pity. They weren't sorry for me, they were scared their son would end up in jail or penniless. I closed the door and walked to my bedroom, opening a small drawer in the corner. Inside was the wedding dress I'd had custom made at a vintage shop in Savannah, white silk, French lace, hand-stitched. I'd never worn it, never shown it to anyone. I remembered the day he proposed in the rain, hands trembling as he slipped the ring on my finger, saying, all I have is my sincerity. Marry me. I was naive, believing sincerity could buy stability. I folded the dress, placed it in a box, and carried it to the backyard, where a small metal incinerator stood. I burned it. Flames flared, blue tongues licking the fabric. No tears, no nostalgia, just white smoke, light as the blind love I once had. I turned away, leaving the fire to smolder. Some things don't need to be kept as memories, especially broken promises. James Carter once stood on a stage, toasting partners, charming reporters, speaking to the media with poise and ambition. He'd proudly told me he'd show the financial world what a young CEO could do. I believed him, even using my name to guarantee his first loans. Sadly, the one lifted highest by the wind is the first to fall when it shifts. 3 weeks after the board meeting, news broke on 3 major Seattle financial sites. James Carter's personal assets were seized by the bank. His luxury condo, mortgaged with company funds, was listed for liquidation. Those who praised his vision cut ties. Former colleagues refused him new projects. The media dubbed him the CEO who built with his wife's money and burned it on a mistress. I didn't stop anyone. The truth didn't need my defense, it spoke when the betrayer had nothing left to hide behind. One Monday afternoon, as I reviewed contracts in my office, the receptionist called. James Carter wanted a final talk. I looked up from my files and said, "Let him up." 5 minutes later, he entered, no pressed shirt, no tie, no CEO aura. Just a gaunt man, face haggard, eyes sunken, hands trembling like he'd starved his spirit and body for days. No greeting, no preamble, he knelt on the office floor. "Tina, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me, give me one chance to start over." I didn't help him up. I pulled a folder from my drawer, placed it on the glass table, and slid it toward him. "This lists every loan, misuse of my name, and unauthorized expenditure. It's stamped by the law firm." He looked up, face crumpling, not from fear, but because he knew I wouldn't yield. I stood, walked to the window, and looked at the bustling street below. My voice carried back, calm and cold, "You don't get a fresh start with me. Chances are given at the right time. If you don't keep them, they're gone. And what's gone, no one's foolish enough to take back." Behind me, I heard him cry, not loudly, just choked, silent tears, like a child who knew they'd done wrong but too late to fix. I turned, looking at the man who was once my husband, who promised me a safe home. Now he sat crumpled, a shadow in a room built for billion-dollar deals. I felt no glee, but no pity either. Just fairness. Fairness is when someone who betrayed for a romantic dream falls into the abyss of reality. Fairness is when I didn't need to wield a knife, but the one who hid it behind me bled himself. I called security. As they helped him up and let him out, his eyes clung to me, no longer with anger or pride, just fear and deep regret for what he didn't keep and could never reclaim. The court ruled on a Thursday morning. Seattle drizzled, but I wasn't there. I didn't need to see James Carter bow his head, face pale, hearing the verdict. I didn't need to see the bitter or helpless looks of those who'd invested in Carter. Instead, I sat on a small wooden chair by the ocean in San Diego, holding a hot cocoa. Waves crashed against rocks before me. I'd come to the place I'd once dreamed of visiting for our honeymoon, but he dismissed it, saying, "Investing that money is smarter." Back then, I nodded, thinking a man who planned for the future was worth relying on. Now, I laughed, not from pain, but from the irony. If I'd waited for someone to protect me, I'd have been destroyed by him. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Court approved the petition. He's ordered to repay 80% of misappropriated assets, plus civil damages for violating investment terms. He requested installments, but the court demands 50% within 3 months, or enforcement follows. I closed my phone without replying. Michael knew me. He knew I didn't need a loud victory. I just needed freedom. I walked along the shore, the salty breeze on my cheeks, my hair whipping behind me. On the sand, couples strolled hand in hand, some laughing, some bickering, some piggybacking playfully. I paused by a rocky outcrop where a seagull dipped for a drink, then soared away. I remembered our wedding embrace. He'd held me tightly before friends and family, saying, "Tina, I'll shield you forever." I'd smiled like a child, thinking marriage was the safest place on earth. Now, I laughed, not from pain, but amusement. If I'd kept waiting for protection, I'd be shattered by now. I closed my eyes, letting the sea breeze fill my chest, washing away heavy memories. I didn't hate James Carter, not from forgiveness, but because he no longer occupied a corner of my mind. I forgave myself, for being blind, for enduring too long, for trusting someone unworthy. No one taught me how to live after betrayal, but I learned to save myself before hoping for rescue. I turned from the sea. Behind me, waves crashed on. Ahead, the city waited for me to live on, no longer someone's wife, no longer a shadow. They say, how long does it take to start over? For me, it was 1 year, from the day I sat on that San Diego beach, let go of the last old memory, and promised myself, from now on, I live for me. That year, I converted my remaining shares into capital for a new venture, Horizon Holdings. Not tech, not risky startups, but a franchise chain in education, finance, and fine dining, steady, like me now. Tina Harris, 34, the only female CEO in the top 10 multi-industry founders in the Pacific Northwest. They invited me on TV to share my recovery secrets. I declined. I didn't need an audience, I just needed life to know I'd stood up honorably. One late autumn afternoon, after a meeting with investors in Portland, I was heading to my hotel when Michael appeared in the lobby. He wore a light gray shirt, a black jacket, and held a briefcase, just like the days we tackled James Carter's case. You're letting me eat alone in this strange city? He teased, eyebrow raised. I laughed. Don't top lawyers always manage on their own? He shrugged. Walk with me. Spoken like a smart lawyer who doesn't pass up dinner with the woman he likes. I froze for a beat. Michael said it lightly, like commenting on the weather. But I knew it took him 5 years to say it. We dined at a cozy Italian restaurant. The evening passed with red wine, pasta, and random talk, work, old neighborhoods being razed, movies I hadn't seen because I was too busy being a good wife. Over dessert, he asked, remember, 5 years ago, when you started the media firm for Carter, who was the first to email about legal partnership? I frowned, thinking. You? He nodded, smiling. I wanted to pursue you then. But I heard you were getting married, so I backed off. I laughed, setting down my glass. So you're back now? He nodded, serious. Because I know you don't need rescuing. You just need someone to stand beside you, not shield you. I looked at him, silent. I thought I had no heart left to love, but some people don't knock loudly, they wait quietly until you're ready. I didn't promise or rush. But that night, as we walked on a stone-paved street, streetlights casting our shadows side by side, I knew the new person wasn't a replacement, but the first to make me believe love wasn't a scam. I thought if I remarried, I'd wear a white suit and sign a contract instead of vows. I didn't believe in wedding dresses, chapels, or a man's gaze making my heart flutter again. Yet here I was, on a soft sandy beach in Miami, under warm sun, salty breeze, and whispering waves. I wore a white wedding dress, not ornate, just cool silk against my skin, so soft I almost thought I was dreaming. No fireworks, no hundreds of guests, just a few dozen close friends, colleagues, and those who stood by me in my darkest days. And most importantly, the man holding my hand at the altar, with steady eyes and a quiet smile, Michael Lee. Before stepping up, my adoptive father, whom I always called Dad, took my hand and said softly, my girl, if you chose to live alone, I'd be at peace. But if you're choosing to move forward with someone today, I just hope he's truly worthy. I looked at him, nodded, and said slowly, you're right. Your daughter can be happy without anyone's love. But today, I choose to love because he's worthy. I didn't cry, I just smiled, like my heart felt now. After years of entanglement, letting go, fighting, and finally finding peace. The wedding had no flashy MC, no diamond-encrusted ring, just a whispered promise between two adults who understood marriage isn't a dream, but an effort. With the right person, that effort is worth living. We released 2 sky lanterns over the sea, inscribed with a simple line, no one needs to change for anyone, just walk together toward decency. As the lanterns rose, I stood in Michael's arms, the sea breeze billowing my dress. I turned, looking at the ocean, where, a year ago, I sat alone, thinking I'd never love again. The best things come at the right time, not when you're naive, but when you're wise enough to choose right. I didn't forgive James Carter, not at all. I didn't forget the sleepless nights, the years I carried a one-sided love. I didn't forget his eyes as he walked away with another woman, leaving me with ruins. I didn't forgive him, but I forgave myself, for being weak, for trusting the wrong person, for neglecting myself too long. I chose happiness with my own hands, not for revenge, but to remind myself I was worthy. The sea breeze lifted my dress, the sun shone on my face, radiant, without a trace of tears. For the first time, I didn't need protection, because I knew the man beside me didn't need to promise grandly, he just needed to be my partner. Today, I'm married, not to be loved, but because I loved myself enough. They say marrying the right person makes every morning worth waking for. I was a night owl, often working until 2 a.m. Yet lately, I've been up before 7 o'clock, not for work, but because my kitchen's become a sweet alarm, the clink of pans, the smell of fried eggs, water pouring into a teapot, and a warm male voice, "Tina, get up. I made those sweet potato pancakes you liked." I rolled over, burying my face in the pillow, mumbling like a lazy cat, 10 more minutes, kind CEO. Michael's laugh echoed, followed by, "Don't get up, and I'll eat them all, no leftovers." I don't know when I started loving Monday mornings. Before, they were a slog of meetings, unanswered emails, and James Carter's cold glances when I mentioned investments. Now, my Mondays are soft radio music, perfectly brewed oolong tea, and a light kiss on my forehead as a good luck wish. After the wedding, Michael and I didn't live a flashy rom-com life. We don't call each other honey or post ring photos. We work, meet, argue over quarterly reports when needed. The difference? After meetings, he waits in the lobby, slips a warm water bottle into my hand, and asks, "Have you eaten?" Horizon grew to 4 states in a year, signing a strategic education partnership in Seattle. I'm still the head, but Michael's the quiet engine behind it. He handles legal filings, contract talks, crisis PR, silently, effectively, earning board praise. Tina's husband is the company's lucky star. I smile, not the cynical grin of old, but one of true peace. At a board meeting in Boise, a reporter asked, "After such a big fall, how did you find the strength to believe in marriage again?" I answered softly, "Because I met the right person, not perfect, but someone who doesn't demand I be perfect to be loved." That night, I sent Michael the interview clip. He didn't text back, just video called. His face appeared, smudged with flour from baking. He grinned, "I'm not perfect, but I'm a quick learner. This cake might actually be edible." I nodded, teasing, "And if it's not?" He shrugged. "I'll keep learning." Didn't my wife, leads better than me, learn to love again from scratch? I paused, then smiled, touching my chest, where a broken heart had healed. I didn't want more, no castles, no trophies, just mornings with someone waiting, evenings with someone saying, "I'll do the dishes." That's enough. I, Tina Harris, lost everything to the wrong love, but reclaimed it all with my own hands. This time, I didn't just survive, I thrived. If someone told 34-year-old me I'd be taking my kid to parent-teacher conferences while my husband trailed behind, carrying a lunchbox and grumbling about tough homework, I'd have choked on my tea. Back then, I was rebuilding my career, entering a second marriage, wondering if I could trust family life again. 10 years later, I believe. I believe through busy hands changing diapers, cooking porridge, picking kindergartens, then elementary schools. I believe through every mommy in a lisping voice, every ink stain on my skirt from a child's pen, every sleepless night over a slight fever. I believe most clearly when Michael crouches outside Class 1A2, panting from rushing from a shareholder meeting, still wearing his Horizon badge, face sweaty like a sitcom dad running late. I crossed my arms, smirking. Third time this semester you're late for parent-teacher night. He leaned on his knees, grinning sheepishly. The Miami partners talked too much. I didn't mean to. But I made it for the part where the teacher said our kid's the best artist in class, so that counts, right? I laughed. Sure, Dad of the Year's a bit messy, but sincere enough for our girl to call you a superhero. Our daughter, Mia Lee, second grade, lively with pigtails, loves to tell stories. Mom used to be Dad's boss, and she was super strict. She doesn't know her mom once made her dad quiver for late paperwork, or that her mom walked away from a shattered marriage and her dad waited at the end of the slope. 10 years on, we're not young, but we've lived true to our age, no rivalry, no need to prove strength. We celebrate good financials, share snacks during late-night calls, and snap photos of Mia's first lost tooth like it's a national milestone. I used to think happiness was public acclaim. Now I know it's when Mia asks, "Mom, how long have you and Dad loved each other?" I don't count, because every day answers, cooking breakfast together, driving her to piano, reading bedtime stories, looking at each other, whispering, "We survived, and we're thriving." After parent-teacher night, we took Mia for ice cream. On the way home, Michael asked, "If you hadn't met me in that hotel lobby, but someone else, would you have married?" I glanced at him. Nope. No one could replace you. Only you had the guts to take on Seattle's toughest boss lady. He laughed, embarrassed, and held my hand. In that moment, I knew, a happy ending doesn't need fanfare, just someone who stays through the journey. Tina Harris's story ends here, not with a loud revenge, but a new life, warm, self-assured, complete. She didn't forgive her betrayer, she forgave herself, the girl who sacrificed too much for someone unworthy. In the end, she didn't need rescuing, just a partner, calm, understanding, forgiving.